with just 4 weeks of the regular season left, the NFL awards market is coming to a close, and we decided to do an impromptu show on the updated odds, who we think is going to win, and amongst MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, and all these others. It feels like, especially with MVP, we have a couple where there's a 3-way sprint to the finish line. So we wanted to dive in. We did one at the beginning of the year where we talked about all of our picks to win the NFL MVP, Player of the Years on both sides of the football and whatnot. And so we thought we should do a little bit of a refresher, a market update, and talk about who we think at this point in the season can and will win the NFL MVP amongst other awards. Before we get in, Brendan, how are we doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. I'm just working. It's cold,
Yeah,
but it's a good
cold.
time of year. I'm ready to get the fires going. It's a good time of year. Ready to go.
Yeah. All right, man, let's talk football. We won't take up too quick. The most important one that everybody is discussing, this is the one I mentioned. There's currently a 3-way sprint to the finish line, the NFL MVP. Everybody wants to know who's going to win. Everybody wants to know who is worthy of the MVP award. And I have to lead this off by one. This feels like one of the nastiest MVP races we've had in recent memory. There's no clear-cut winner. There's nobody who's like elevating themselves above everybody in a clear-cut manner in which we've had in the past with the play that we've had of Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees. All of these guys have, put up historically insane numbers, and it just feels like this season we have kind of some lackluster play. We still have great play out of these quarterbacks, certainly, but not truly elite play right now. So hopefully in the home stretch of these games, we kind of see that come to fruition from some of these quarterbacks. And two, speaking of quarterbacks, I don't necessarily agree with the award and the way that it's become and what it's become, because it's really just the best quarterback for the best team award in essence. If you are a good quarterback that plays for a team who's winning the most games, you're immediately top 5 to win the MVP. So now I don't think it holds true to, what it actually means, most valuable player, and who's the most valuable player to their team and why they have success. I certainly think team success should play a big role, but not in its entirety. So with that being said, let's talk MVP Brock Purdy. He is now on the forefront of the MVP race at 3-1, especially coming off of his win against the Eagles. There's a lot of debate around Brock Purdy right now on if he should even be considered because of a couple different things, but mainly everybody thinks that Brock Purdy's success rides on the back of all of his playmakers. They think that his passing yards are inflated due to a bunch of catch and runs from Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey. Valid, but I have some counterpoints that I want to bring up here soon. But as we get into the rip, Brendan, do you think Brock Purdy should be considered for MVP, or do you think he is worthy of winning the MVP, or are you somebody who thinks that the award should go to somebody else?
Well, I mean, like we talked about before, and now I'm in agreement. I mean, the award should go to CJ Stroud because he's the most valuable player on his team. They're 7-5. They might be, only have 4 wins if it wasn't for him. So he's really elevated everybody around him. I agree with the point that Purdy's receivers are doing a lot of work for him. Also, he's in an amazing scheme for him. But I mean, he's leading the league in QBR and passer rating, and he's near the top in all statistical categories. So I think that he's got a great shot to win it. And I think it'll end up coming down to the win totals between these players. Like, I don't know who your top, I mean, I'm pretty sure I know who the top 3 in the race are, but
yeah,
it's going to come down.
Mac, Jalen, they're all right there, 9-3. Eagles are 10-2, but
yeah, but the 49ers have the easiest schedule out of those three teams that those quarterbacks are on, in my opinion. And I think that 49ers, like I said in the last podcast, will be the number one seed in the NFC. So barring that, I think that it's his to lose.
So yeah, I'm kind of on the same page with you. I hear a lot of the chatter about Brock Purdy dumps it off to Debo and runs 70 yards. Sure, that's baked in, but there are other quarterbacks that are doing that right now. And to defend Brock Purdy, in essence, look at Jalen Hurts. He's throwing to A.J. Brown, the best contested catcher in the NFL, Devontae Smith, who's really had a coming out party the last year and a half. And he's playing behind one of the best offensive lines in the game. To Dak Prescott, look at all the catches and look at all the stuff that CeeDee Lamb's doing. Now, not discrediting Dak Prescott, I think he's playing phenomenal football. And I think if he continues to play the way that he's playing and they win outright, I think it goes to Dak. Now, winning, again, that's the big question mark. But to defend Brock Purdy, right now, he is number one in adjusted yards per attempt. So he's still stretching the ball down the field. It's not like he's dinking and dunking. So take that into consideration. He is the number one overall. He has the number one overall deep ball completion percentage in the league. Deep ball being 20 plus yards. He, according to Next Gen Stats, he is number 2 in the NFL in deep ball catchable pass rate. He is number 6 in pressured catchable pass rate. And he is number 1 in quarterback EPA. Now, you can't do those by just dinking and dunking. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. You can argue me all you want, but there's no way that you can do that strictly off bubble screens and then throwing it short over the middle and letting your guy run. To be the number 1 deep ball completion percentage, the number 2 deep ball accuracy rating, that is impressive. That is impressive. And that's not accounting for, just people who are running wide open down the seam. We don't really see that too often. I mean, Brock Purdy, to me, when I watch him, one thing stands out the most, and his anticipation, elevates himself amongst all the quarterbacks. There's nobody that anticipates better than Brock Purdy. He throws the ball and he fits the ball in tight windows, and he is insanely impressive at putting the ball in position for his receivers to catch it where the cornerbacks cannot. It's wildly impressive. So Brock Purdy deserves to be there, and I do agree that the talent is a certain supplement to him being as good as he is. But those stats I just read off, they're not possible with strictly just dinking and dunking. If not, why didn't Jimmy Garoppolo do it? Why not? Why? I mean, he took him to the Super Bowl, but he certainly didn't have those stats. Why didn't Jimmy G do it? Why couldn't Trey Lance do it? Tell me. Why couldn't
he sucks?
Exactly. So if that were the case, then look at it from that aspect. So Brock Purdy, I certainly think he deserves to be there. And if the San Francisco 49ers clinch the number 1 seed in the NFC, and I think it really comes down to this weekend, like we discussed in the last pod, if the Dallas Cowboys beat the Eagles, then San Francisco elevates themselves on the 1 seed. And I think if they win out, Brock Purdy certainly gets it. So there's my argument for them.
I would say that I agree with you that Dallas, I think Dallas is going to win this weekend against the Eagles. I also want to say that Jalen Hurts is a lot more, puts himself in situations to get hurt more, and I think he could get a little bit banged up, maybe miss 1 game, and that'll put him out. I think it's between Purdy and Dak, in my opinion.
Now here's the argument for Dak. Dak, if they beat the Eagles, they will be number 1 in the NFC East, and then 49ers also have to play the Ravens later on. So I think if the 49ers drop a game from this point forward, the Cowboys, well, if the 49ers drop 2 games, then the Cowboys can, if they win out, they elevate themselves at 1 seed. So that's a scenario. But I think really if Dak wins this weekend, he thrusts himself as a tie, and he's plus 325 to win the MVP. So he's right there behind Brock Purdy, but I think he puts himself equal to Brock Purdy to win the MVP if he wins this weekend. I think if he gets a win this weekend, it'll be huge for MVP odds. I would also not even be shocked if they put him ahead, because if they win out, there's a potential chance, given the fact that if the 49ers drop a few, that the Cowboys could win the 1 seed. And if you think that's going to happen, then grabbing Dak Prescott wouldn't be the worst idea. But truly, I think there's no quarterback playing better than Dak Prescott right now. I think the MVP, like you said, should be CJ Stroud. If they win double-digit games, I think if I was a voter, I would vote for CJ Stroud. If you're talking about the most valuable player, CJ Stroud fits the mold. You take one of the worst teams in the league last year, and then now you're winning double-digit games and you're into the playoffs. I think that will be more baked into the coach of the year, but it should be CJ Stroud. Dude's an absolute baller, teammate elevator to the max. But nobody's playing better quarterback right now than Dak Prescott. They currently sit at a 4 seed, and at 9-3, he's number 2 in quarterback EPA. He is first in the league in pressured completion percentage. He is number 3 in deep ball completion percentage. He is the best overall when it comes to pressured catchable pass rate. So under pressure, there's no quarterback who is more accurate than Dak Prescott in the crunch time. 2 in accuracy rating. Number 4 in adjusted yards per attempt. Brock Purdy is the one that leads that one, but Dak Prescott, he's still stretching the field, is not one of those dink and dunk guys. But here's the caveat for Dak Prescott. He is number 22 in the league in NFL turnover-worthy passes. He's prone. We've seen it. Last year, he had the interception mistake, and this year, he started off pretty tough with some turnover-worthy plays. He's gotten better. So he has that going for him, but he needs to really hone in these last few weeks. He certainly needs, I think if they don't win this Sunday, I think it's game over for Dak. I think he's out of the race. I think Jalen Hurts takes that next step, and then Brock Purdy, of course, is still number 1. But that's my argument for Dak. That's my argument against Dak. And as I do think he's playing quarterback better than anybody else, it doesn't matter if you're not winning. So
I'll say
Jalen Hurts.
Oh, go ahead.
No, take it. Still on Dak.
All I'm going to say is that, still on Dak. Dak has lost to Jalen Hurts, and he's lost to Brock Purdy this year.
That's true.
One more thing I will say about Dak is that, Purdy's been doing this all year. He had a few games in the middle that were
2 in particular,
a little shaky. But these awards go to the people who get hot and are ascending throughout the year, and it seems like Dak is just ascending and been ascending the whole year. So that's a really good argument in that direction, especially if they went out. Oh man, if they went out,
they have to get it.
I think it's going to come down who has the best record at this point, because one of those teams could easily win out.
Yeah,
I don't think both will. So, because football's football, but I think it comes down to who you think is going to end up with the better record between those two. Now, hit me on the Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts is currently 3rd, right behind Dak Prescott in the MVP race. Doesn't really have the numbers that any of these guys do, but again, if you have the best record in the league, you're going to be up there. That's just what the market has proven. That's what the voters have proven. So, granted, Eagles are 10-2, hence why Jalen Hurts is so high up. I think he drops more. We already mentioned this. If the Eagles lose, I think he's pretty much burnt toast. And some of his metrics aren't that sexy. He is top 5 quarterback in QB EPA. But, in comparison, let's look at some of the other stats. He's 12th in the NFL in deep ball completion percentage, 13th in pressured catchable pass rate. And he's like bottom on the totem pole. Not bottom, but relatively speaking to the rest of the MVP list, bottom of the totem pole in like passing yards and passing touchdowns. Dak has 26 passing touchdowns to Jalen Hurts' 19. Brock Purdy has 23. The other the only thing I'm leaving out, of course, is the rushing touchdowns. You know, he has tons of rushing touchdowns, so his total touchdowns are equal to the other guys. But man, I just, you know, I just don't agree with this at all. It's, you know, Jalen Hurts, he looked a lot better last year than he did this year. And personally, I would have Brock, Dak, and CJ ahead of Jalen Hurts. I think CJ should really be above him if we're being honest. But and Tua, I mean, I know Tua has Tyreek, but
No,
at the
no.
same time, I don't think Jalen Hurts can win this. I just don't think he will have enough, and I don't think they'll win out because I think they lose to the Cowboys. So, but if they do beat the Cowboys, the rest of the schedule is relatively easy. You know, they have the Giants twice.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is a chance that if they win Sunday, they could go the entire season with only losing 2 games.
It won't happen.
So that's where Jalen Hurts will thrust himself back up into contention.
The only question you have to ask here is if you take away his rushing touchdowns, he's not even in the question.
Exactly. But
Because,
you can't do that though, because I mean,
I know, but listen,
they're all
like,
tush push.
those rushing touchdowns, are they actually that impressive? If he doesn't have Jason Kelsey in front of him in the offensive line, like,
They're all
there's a
tush push.
reason. I understand that Jalen Hurts is a monster of an athlete and can squat like 1,000 pounds, and that's why he's good at that. But at the same time, they've got some weird perfect scheme to be able to do that. And I cannot believe that he has 12 rushing touchdowns, all on well, not all on touch pushes, but probably 9 of those are, or 8 of those are, and it's from the 1 yard line. Like, how impressive is that? And like, I know
Yeah.
that stat's really big, but how impressive is that really? And if you take it away, he's not even top 10.
Comparatively
Maybe top 10,
speaking,
but
to guys like Dak and Brock, Dak runs a little bit, but you know, Brock and not they both don't run near as much in comparison with Jalen Hurts, and so it's all being done behind their arms, which I think does make it a bit more impressive in its own right. But yeah, I agree. The tush push is not, you know, I can't really say I commend it. You know, I love the play. I don't think the NFL should ban it, but am I going to attribute that to Jalen Hurts' success? A little bit, but not much. Not much.
like, if he was doing Lamar Jackson runs, then give it to him. Like Lamar's MVP, you're like, dude would take off and score 60-yard rush just on break 8 tackles. That is elite and that counts. But I don't know if the touch push counts.
Right.
You know, it's just
yeah.
Yeah.
So as we move on, I think there's really no way that it's not going to go to one of these guys. I think Lamar or Tua would have the next best chance. I know Mahomes is actually 6-1 in 4th place behind Jalen Hurts, but I don't think he can pull it together just due to the lack of offensive weapons. Maybe if they get the 1 seed, they're 1 game behind the Dolphins, and they would need a couple of different things to go right to be able to get that 1 seed. So maybe if they got the 1 seed, he could get it. But I think Lamar and Tua are the next best up. Lamar is 7-1, Tua is 9-1. If Lamar had just an absolute bonkers last home stretch of the season coming out of the bye week, then I think so, because if that were to happen, they would get the 1 seed, and they're tied 9-3 with Miami. So I could see that being the case. But really, outside of the top 3, I don't think this goes to anybody else. Do you agree?
I agree. I think it goes between who has the better record of Dak and Purdy.
Yep. Okay. Offensive player of the year. I don't even really want to talk about this. It's going to be Tyreek.
It's Cheetah.
It's Cheetah, man.
Who's even close? Like, who else is even closer?
Christian McCaffrey plus 175.
I mean, it's going to be Tyreek, especially because
it's got to be.
I mean, he is like probably, I don't even think arguably the most valuable player on that offense, because you get him the ball and he's
gone. He should be considered more highly for MVP if the award meant what it said, but it doesn't. Mm-hmm. So it's a quarterback award, which I do think quarterback is, you know, just the way that the league is structured now, it isn't the most valuable position, hands down. But I think Tyreek should get a little more credit in that race.
Yeah, yeah. I think it'll be Tyreek, no doubt. Especially because
It has
like
to
there's
be.
all the narrative of him going for 2,000 yards and the fact that Mike McDaniel like is going to try to get him there,
Yeah. And
which is awesome.
what's crazy too is like you think about a scenario in which he gets hurt. He could still very well win it if he goes down on Sunday. You know?
I mean, he's leading in receiving yards by 300 yards already. So
It's insane. It's insanity. So, and there's nobody more valuable to their team. Christian McCaffrey would probably take it if he were to get hurt, but he would still have to continue what he's doing, which he can. But yeah, it's Tyreek. I don't even really want to talk about this much.
yeah,
Um,
he's
so
also leading in touchdowns, receiving touchdowns by a good bit also. So
yeah.
I don't think anybody's going to catch him unless he got hurt.
And then same with offensive rookie of the year.
That's CJ.
We know
Should be
it's
MVP.
gonna be. It's gonna
Should
be
be
CJ.
MVP. So it's him.
He's a heavy favorite. So I'm not worried about that. Although I am kind of tilting about my offseason picks for Anthony Richardson for offensive rookie of the year.
Mm-hmm.
I was,
It's
he
still
looked like he was going to be him,
it wouldn't have been him
but
because
it
CJ. I
was
mean,
going to be
like,
him.
there's nobody that's going to beat this season that CJ said. He might be the first rookie ever to lead the league in passing yards.
It was crazy.
Like, even if Anthony Richardson had like a top 5 quarterback year, if CJ does that, it's him either way.
All right, yeah, I don't even really want to talk about that either. The defensive player of the year. This one is interesting to me. Micah Parsons leads the front plus 125 to win outright. Myles Garrett plus 225. TJ Watt plus 310 in third. In fourth, a distant fourth, Deron Bland plus 1500, 15 to 1. So I don't really have too much to say. I think this is honestly looking like it's the same deal. It's a conglomeration of, is your team successful? Are they winning a lot of games? And are they a pretty solid unit? And so you see that the top two, Michael Parsons and Myles Garrett, have, definitely their defenses are top 3 defenses in the league, it feels like. And, TJ Watt, he's a little far behind. I think if TJ Watt, has a crazy end of the year and breaks the sack record, sure. I think that is possible. Now, Deron Bland is fun to talk about. The last cornerback to win the Defensive Player of the Year was Stephon Gilmore in 2019 when he played for the Patriots. It's possible. And the reason I have him up here, he's got 6 pick sixes this year. 5 pick sixes. Sorry, I had 6 in my notes. I think if he has 1 or 2 more, especially if he has one against the Eagles, I think he's immediately top 3 consideration. I think you can't ignore a guy like that. I mean, dude is balling out.
How many interceptions do you know Gilmore's stats from that year?
He had 11 that year.
Yeah. Nice.
But it's just bewildering to me that, I thought he was a little low. But it is one of those things where it's like, nowadays, similar to the MVP, it became more concentrated on sack leaders and defensive production. And so if your defense is doing really well and you're one of the league leaders in total sacks, then you're in consideration. So TJ Watt, so Khalil Mack is actually the league leader in sacks at 15 sacks in the overall. But that defense sucks and they're not winning games, so he's not in consideration. TJ Watt's second with 14. It's why they're third. Myles Garrett at 13. Michael Parsons at 11 and a half. So it's hard to gauge this statistically because you have to look at it from more of like a performance-based thing, just in the way that they play. And I think that's why Michael Parsons is leading. He gets all the attention from the offensive line. His defense, the defense that he plays on, is one of the best in the entire league, and his team is, putting up a good race for the 1 seed in the NFC. So I think that's why you get it. And Myles Garrett, I can't get on board with him winning because Joe Flacco's a quarterback. Deshaun Watson's out. It's going to be hard for them to have success in the win column down the stretch. Especially playing in the AFC North. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, you've got like if everything else was the same on like the teams, you're literally comparing apples to apples here. It's 3 defensive ends, like 3 of the best ones, but the difference, like you were saying, is Joe Flacco's quarterback for the Browns. Are the Browns and the Steelers both in the playoffs right now?
The Browns and the Steelers are wild card 2 and 3 with Texans right out.
Yeah, so I said on the last show that I think one of them, if not both of them, would come out. The Texans would go in. So the fact that Pitt gets hurt, be out a couple games probably, he had tightrope surgery, and the Browns will have a quarterback, it's going to come down to winning teams. So I think it'll go to Micah Parsons. But, like, I don't know an average, sack leader is for a season or whatever, but, I mean, these guys haven't really separated from each other a lot. And the fact that Deron Bland has 5 pick sixes, 8 picks, if he were to get, 8 pick sixes, how could you not? These,
exactly.
I know defensive ends are really key parts of the defense, and these guys are amazing, but they aren't separating from each other, and they aren't having record breaking seasons. So I just don't understand why you wouldn't go to a more dynamic player of the year on defense. He obviously is making the most difference. Touchdowns wise, he has 5 picks. What is that? 30 points to his name. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So I want Bland to win.
I do too.
I think he could if he gets 8 pick sixes.
I do too. And the only thing that's holding him back is to go on the flip side for the support case of Micah Parsons. If you ask Dan Quinn, defensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys, if he gun to his head, he had to cut one of those players, he would cut Deron Bland over Micah Parsons. Yeah. So that's just the nature of the game, and it makes sense. And that's why Defensive Player of the Year is not always a statistical based award. It's truly who means the most to out there on the field, who draws the most attention, who creates the most havoc. And so I think that's the supporting case for Micah Parsons, but it should be fun. I think any one of those top 3 can win it. And I do love Deron Bland. Again, we mentioned why he couldn't get it. So, all right. Well, we're going to end on Coach of the Year, and Coach of the Year is always one of the more unpredictable ones, all things considered. So instead of, going through and kind of trying to make an educated guess, we're gonna pretend like we're voters. Okay.
Oh, I can vote.
I want you to give your top 3 ballot. And before, let me list off some of the leaders. Dan Campbell plus 200, D'Amico Ryans plus 250, Shane Steichen plus 600, Mike McDaniel plus 450, Nick Sirianni plus 1,600, Kyle Shanahan plus 1,700, Sean Payton plus 2,000, Matt LaFleur plus 2,000, and then you really get it down into the weeds. So we'll go one by one, okay? Your number 1 overall pick.
We want to start with number 1.
Okay, let's start with number 3. Sorry.
Okay.
Number 3 overall pick for Coach of the Year. Who would it be?
So this is going to sound crazy. First of all, I want to say it would have been Shane Steichen if they had AR and they made the playoffs.
I agree.
That would have been number 3 if that was the case, because in my opinion, Coach of the Year is turning a team around. I mean, that's what it should be. It shouldn't just be who has the best record? Well, you know what? Kyle Shanahan has the best record every year. So my number 3 is Mr. Sean Payton.
Nice.
For bringing the Broncos back from dead. Looked dead at the beginning of the year. And freaking beat the Chiefs. I mean, they could. I mean, small chance, but they could make the playoffs. They could. They still could. And what he's done with that team is kind of awesome, because they were really, really bad last year. And they come out and they're a reasonable team. So don't think he's going to win it all. But my number 3 is Mr. Sean Payton.
I agree. Okay.
Who's
My
your
number
who's your
three. My number three. And a this will be not very well received, but my number three would be Matt LaFleur.
It's a good one.
And I know that
It's a
comes
good one.
crazy,
Mm-mm.
but the Packers have a ton working against them. Had a ton of working against them. Still have a ton working against them. Christian Watson has been out pretty much
All year.
consistently all year. Pretty well, considered one of their best weapons. Aaron Jones has been out predominantly most of the year. One of their best offensive weapons. Jordan Love struggled at the beginning of the season. I think nobody would argue with me that. And then now he's on a tear that can only be attributed towards coaching. So everybody thought the Packers were down and out. Now they're climbing up into contention. They're sitting at the 7th seed in the NFC playoff race, and they have a damn good chance to climb into the 1 or 2 wild card spot if they continue their success. And he's undefeated in the month of December, currently 16-0. So if history says anything, Matt LaFleur will win out in December. Therefore, he will be in the playoffs. I think if he does make the playoffs, I think he should be considered for coach of the year. I know he's lower down on the list. He's plus 2,000 in odds, but he certainly would get the bid for me if he were to win out. So, 2. Brendan, let me hear it.
My number 2. Dan Campbell.
That's my number 2. We'll just go ahead and get it on the board.
Well, then we're gonna agree on number 1 then, and I think it's correct. But
it has to be.
Yeah, but I've got Dan Campbell here. I think beginning of the year, 100% Dan Campbell, number 1.
Yeah.
Beginning of the year, but they've kind of regressed back. I mean, they're a great team, like all around. They are, and they've done a good job. But I don't remember what the record was last year. But it's not as significantly boosted as, and how the team looks as my number 1 coach, and your number 1 coach probably. So he's done a really great job, and I love the Lions to freaking win the bowl. That'd be awesome. But he doesn't win it.
Yeah, I agree. I think if the Lions actually I think if they got the 1 seed in the playoffs, they would get it. But with that not being able to happen with their slide as of late, I don't think he should get it. I think he's been great. I think that's why he gets my second. First, I know yours, it has to be mine. DeMeco Ryans deserves coach of the year. There's 100%. Nobody else who should get it.
100%.
There's nobody else who should get it. Taking one of the worst teams in the league and flipping them around like that indicates, 1, CJ Stroud has a lot to do with that. But 2, as a coach, you're putting CJ Stroud in the position to win, and you don't just place a quarterback in there and say, go fix it. There's a coaching aspect to all of that. There's a player development aspect of all of that leads you to the success that DeMeco Ryans and the Houston Texans have had. And I think if they make the playoffs, DeMeco Ryans should be coach of the year. No questions asked. It is wildly impressive what he's been able to do.
I agree 100%. I also think if there was an award for it, they should be Organization of the Year because of what they did, absolutely tearing up the draft and the free agency.
Oh my gosh, it was insane.
It was the best thing I've ever seen happen was them to trade to get the 3. And they got CJ Stroud and Will Anderson right off the bat. Also, I don't remember what round he was drafted, but they drafted Tank Dell too. So, which is amazing. And
Derek Stingley is playing lights out football.
It's playing great. It's playing great. Defense is on the up. I believe O-line is still getting healthy, but it's really amazing what he did this year with the team. And it's not all him. He's got
CJ.
They got players in there that are going out there to win, and they want to win, and they're very good, and it should just be him. How many wins did they have last year? Like 4?
I don't. Yeah, it was something crazy. I have to look it up because
if they were to lose out, then he wouldn't win. But I think this team's gonna make the playoffs.
3 wins. 3 wins. And now they're going to be playoff contenders.
They can win double-digit games. They could.
Yeah.
And they can make a splash in the play. Like, honestly, they can make a splash in the playoffs. I believe it.
True. And I think if Trevor Lawrence is actually out,
Dude, the Texans are winning the
then
division. It's Trevor Lawrence's boo-boo ankles
exactly,
going for. It's
dude.
boo-boo.
The Texans are one game behind winning the division. That's crazy.
And they play each other at the season finale. Is that correct?
It's week 16 or 17.
Yeah, I think the fact
wild
that
times.
Yeah, it's just insane what they did this year, and I'm proud of them. I'm proud of them.
Me too. One of the easiest teams to root for in the league, 100%. So, all right, hey, well, that wraps it up for our late season awards show, guys. We appreciate you listening. We'll be back here next week with NFL Week 15 breakdown. Don't miss out. Talk to you guys later.